support of Senate Bill 592 with a sponsor amendment, with a technical amendment, I guess, or an additional amendment. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. You and I have been teammates on Achieving Better Life Experience for a while. You as a senator, me first as a delegate. Just very quickly, everybody, what Achieving Better Life Experiences is otherwise known as ABLE. It's a 529 savings program. Prior to this federal law taking effect, prior to the state adopting it, in order to save money, if you have Medicaid, in order to save money, you had to continue to have no more than $2,000. So basically, those with developmental disabilities would have to live in poverty in order to get the Medicaid assistance while not being able to save. So this was providing an opportunity for those families or those individuals with either severe learning differences or developmental disabilities to save for various programs, whether it's college or housing or providers. What this legislation does is what we've seen is that it's such an important program, but it's still being underutilized. We have about 6,000 enrollees where there's still the 16,000 capacity more. So I just want to really thank and salute not only the Treasurer Davis, but his entire team for taking leadership role in this as well, and offering to provide information to parents and guardians through the individual education plan, IEP, and 504 programs. That's the amendment to 504 plan. So when they're meeting once a year with parents and guardians, they can give the parents information about these Achieving Better Life Experience accounts. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to the panel.
And I'll just say, this is actually the ABLE program legislation. I literally is one of the, best, most important bills, I've ever sponsored down here. So it was great to work with you and collaborate with you on that. That said, we're going to go to you, Treasurer Davis, and you will not be on the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After that, I wonder if I need to say anything and just go with it. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here before you this morning to testify on Senate Bill 592. You have a more detailed testimony for me in your packet, so I'm just going to quickly hit boy, I'm having trouble this morning. I'm going to quickly hit a couple of touch points and then turn it over to the other members of the panel. Since assuming responsibility for the 529 program in June of 23, the State Treasurer's Office has learned that the ABLE program is one of the fastest growing ABLE programs in the nation. According to the data collected by the National Association of State Treasurers in December, in terms of the number of accounts and assets under management, Maryland ranks among the top 10 out of 47 states with ABLE programs. And that is in no small part because of what's been done by the Maryland General Assembly. But despite that, we are still underutilized. The ABLE program is still underutilized. As of January 19th of this year, a total of 6,069 Marylanders held individual ABLE accounts. By comparison, 16,695 Marylanders under the age of 18 were eligible to receive supplemental security income in the most recent year for which data is available. So with the amendments that Senator Zucker has proposed, Senate Bill 592 will promote information sharing about Maryland's ABLE program at 3 different touch points. These touch points ensure that Maryland families will receive information that could help their children save for a more secure future. Thank you all very much.
Yes, and you got your official photographer, Senator Kramer.
I would look at it, it would start to throw me.
On the JOB.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Zucker, Ms. London, you want to go next?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Rachel London, the Executive Director of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council. I also want to take a moment to thank Mr. Chair, Senator Zucker, Treasurer, and my partners at Maryland ABLE for starting this, but also their continued support of the program. A couple of kind of more technical things also is you can open an ABLE account at any age for people under 18, even if their family income is too high for Social Security, someone could still open an ABLE account. And it's really important because they can then use the money on things that will help them with their health, independence, and quality of life. Really, so we know it's a really important program. You've also heard how underutilized it is, and that one of the barriers is really awareness and a lack of information about Maryland ABLE, particularly to the families of those under 21. I do want to note that knowing this, the council did partner with Maryland ABLE and actually paid for the development of a plain language guide about the program. And we are committed to continuing that partnership and working with the Treasurer's Office Maryland ABLE program to make sure any future communications that are developed are also in plain language so that the people and their families have the information they need and want. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, tell us who you are.
Chairman, members of the committee, Senator Zucker, Treasurer Davis, and Rachel London. My name is Betty Ann Mobley, and I'm the director of the Maryland ABLE program. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to be here today to answer any questions that you might have about the bill or the program, and to say how amazing this opportunity to have this information shared during these sessions with individual students from the time that they're born until the time that they graduate from high school will be. As a very small program of staff, outreach across the state is fast and furious for us, but difficult to reach every single family. And when we looked at our numbers, we saw that only 16% of those over 6,000 accounts actually are school-age children. So we knew that we needed to take new strategies in order to reach additional people, and this bill will help us do that. So we hope that we have a favorable response to this bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the panel. Any questions? We're going to start with Senator Carozza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I want to thank you and Chair Zucker, and I say Chair Zucker, for his leadership on the ABLE program. You were my first subcommittee chair when I was a delegate, and this was one of the first issues that you educated me on and brought me along on. And I wasn't aware that that the program was underutilized. So thank you for this bill. My question is, I see that we're trying to, make sure the information is available to parents through the school system, but I'm just thinking, and maybe it's a matter of just working individually with the locals, but there's another way to also make sure that information is out there beyond the parents. And I would be happy to work with my local school systems on that.
We really appreciate that, ma'am. We currently have very strong partnerships with the transitioning youth coordinators across the counties. And so we have very strong relationships and coordination. We're in all the transitioning youth fairs across the state and work with presenting to parents on transitioning youth nights. That doesn't cover those individual family support plans. We do have different connections with some counties, but we're not able to get with any counties. So any connections that you can provide us with, please just reach out to us and we will definitely be there, whether it's virtually or in person, to connect with those counties for school-age children.
So let's plan to follow up for my 3 counties.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for this panel? Okay, thank you, Senator Zucker, Treasurer Davis, and everybody else. That concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 592. We're gonna next go Senator Kramer here. Why don't you come up here, Senator Kramer? You've got
The treasurer.
2 bills.
Come get some photographs.
2 bills.
No, she needs her.
Okay, you've got 2 bills, Senator Kramer. Do you have a preference on which one you want to go
Yes,
first?
may I suggest Senate Bill 598, which I think should be a relatively quick bill,
You
Mr.
mean
Chair.
Senate Bill 598?
598.
Okay, let's start with Senate Bill 598. Let me just get the witnesses. We have a panel that you've designated, Christopher Woolleyhand, Mr. Woolleyhand here. We've got Lori Phelps, Tracy Hillard, and then one virtual witness. Again, this is just the sponsor panel. This virtually Melissa Schindel. And then after that, we do have some additional witnesses, but we're going to start with your sponsor panel on 598, Senator Kramer. And so do we have 3 plus our virtual. Okay, Senator Kramer, again, we're on 598. You take the time you need to explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't think this one will take a whole lot of explanation. Good morning, colleagues. Ben Kramer here to introduce Senate Bill 598. And basically, all this bill does is add to our State Board of Education a principal as a member. Right now, we have a teacher, we have a parent, we have a student. What we do not have is an administrator. And how that happened in the first place is lost on me, but the bill simply now ensures that that invaluable perspective will become part of the board. Now, you should hopefully receive an amendment if you did not yet. And I'll explain to you what it does. I was contacted by our friends from the board who said they support the idea of having a principal. Their only concern was expanding the board from 13 members to 14 members. So the amendment that you all will receive, if it's not already with you, keeps the board at 13 members. It just indicates that one of those members of the 13, just like we have a teacher, we have a parent, and we have a student member, there will be a principal as one of the members, keeping the board at its current 13 membership. What we also discussed, the bill as introduced had the appointment of the principal follow the same process that is done with the teachers. The board expressed concern with that because it is a rather complex process. So the amendment that you will receive modifies that and puts in place something similar to how the parent is selected for the board. And what it will indicate is that the two primary groups that represent the principals, that's elementary school and then our middle and high school, there's two organizations. They will cooperatively and jointly make 3 recommendations. They'll nominate 3 individuals between their organizations from which the governor will make a single selection for that individual that will represent the principals. Finally, the amendment will qualify that we are not seeking to remove someone at this point in time and appoint a principal. The principal will be appointed when next there are vacancies. My understanding is that coming up next year, there will be 3 vacancies on the board. And at that point in time, one of those individuals will be a principal. It's just that simple. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I'll let the good folks here at the panel discuss it further. But again, my understanding is there's no opposition, and I don't know whether the board is going to come to the table, but I believe you received a letter from them indicating that with these changes, they were supportive.
Okay, well, they've signed up, so I don't know if I
Okay,
see
great.
Don Crawford here, but okay, so who wants to lead off? Each of you are going to be subject to a 2-minute clock, okay? Just give you a heads up. You want to lead off?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Tracy Hilliard, and I'm honored to address you today. I serve as the principal of Urbana Elementary School in Frederick County, and I hold the esteemed position of the current president of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals. I'm here with you with a deep sense of responsibility and pride in representing not only my school, but the collection of voices of well over 600 elementary school principals spanning our 24 school districts across Maryland. I am here today to express my strong endorsement of Senate Bill 598 for the inclusion of a practicing principal on the Maryland State Board of Education. Currently, the composition of the Maryland State Board of Education is commendable in the representation of various stakeholders, including parents, students, and teachers. However, it is critical to recognize that principals play a pivotal role in the school community, serving as leaders who directly engage with the multifaceted aspects of education. The role of the principal in shaping the daily operations and overall direction of a school is indeed significant. As we embark on the implementation of the blueprint for Maryland's future, principals are tasked with additional responsibilities that directly impact the school community. It is critical to recognize that many of the decisions related to the implementation are currently being made by the Maryland State Board of Education, which only includes the voices of a student member, a parent member, and a teacher member. With those perspectives, as undoubtedly they are valuable, the absence of a practicing principal's voice leaves a critical gap in the representation of those responsible for executing and adapting to the policies of day-to-day on the daily basis. Principals bring a unique set of experiences and insights to the practical implications and challenges of implementing educational initiatives. Including a practicing principal on the Maryland State Board of Education would not only enhance the comprehensiveness of the board, but also ensure that decisions made at the state level are well-informed by the realities faced by schools on the ground level. I would thank you again for your support, especially Senator Kramer and Senator Jackson and the Education, Energy and Environmental Committee, but we hope for you give us a Senate Bill 598, a favorable report.
Okay, thank
you.
you. Who wants to go next? Okay, well, put that mic next to you. We need to hear you for the millions of people watching on the internet.
Okay, sorry.
And you're on the 2-minute clock, okay? And tell us who you are.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, and Senator Kramer, thank you so much for your sponsorship. My name is Lori Phelps. I am a 10-year principal serving in Baltimore County. I am the Maryland State Rep to the National Association of Elementary School Principals. I appreciated Senator Kramer's introduction because my question isn't about why you should support it, but why would you oppose it? Research shows that effective principals are linked to improve student achievement, better student attendance, lower exclusionary discipline, lower teacher turnover, and higher teacher satisfaction. This list of items comprises a majority of the conversation of the State Board of Education. Why wouldn't you want someone knowledgeable in these items in the room when the door is closed and these important decisions are made? Here are some examples of how a principal voice in the room could impact decision-making. On the topic of full-day pre-K expansion, the discussion of trailers that will need to be installed to increase school capacity. Have we talked about that? Principals know the importance of instructional minutes to the ups and downs, ins and outs on rainy days, cold days, and we will increase trailers on schools receiving full-day pre-K. We simply don't have that school capacity. Principals can address that. On the topic of teacher morale and job satisfaction, principals can share the inordinate amount of school staff that come to school medicated, doctor-prescribed medication due to job stress. On the topic of school funding, principals could address that a single change in how poverty is calculated could impact a school's poverty rating from 27% to 66% in 1 year with the same student population, which would increase or decrease $397,000 in funding. The school principal can share that information. I have other examples, but I will close by just saying that the principal voice does matter. And the question would be, why wouldn't you want it in the room? Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Christopher Woolleyhan. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals, a professional organization, not a union, with members from all 24 Maryland districts. Our organization provides service, support, and advocacy for current and aspiring school leaders across this great state. I'm here to speak in favor of Senate Bill 598. We believe, as Laurie mentioned, this should be really an easy decision for Maryland lawmakers. The current board is included, as already mentioned, students, parents, and teachers. It's time to add a sitting principal. Having a school principal on the State Board of Education will offer valuable perspectives and insights into the practical realities of running schools. Principals are on the front lines of education daily, dealing with challenges, interacting with students and teachers and parents, implementing educational policies at the ground level. Their experiences will provide a crucial link between policy making and the actual impact it has on schools and students. The blueprint for Maryland's future, which has been mentioned, has placed significant responsibilities at the feet of Maryland principals. They accept those responsibilities with grace and a firm commitment to their students. The reality is that there's been a disconnect in Maryland between building level school administrators and state level decision makers. Including a principal on the State Board of Education will help foster collaboration and communication between policymakers and practitioners, leading to more informed decision-making and improving the quality of education across our state. Principals offer firsthand knowledge of the needs and challenges faced by their schools. They can help ensure that education policies are relevant, effective, and responsive to Maryland's diverse needs. Thank you to Senators Kramer and Jackson for sponsoring this bill, and thank you to the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee for holding today's hearing. We are grateful for your advocacy on behalf of students, parents, teachers, and of course, principals. We hope that you'll give a favorable report for Senate Bill 598. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to our one virtual witness who's also part of our sponsor panel, and then we'll open up for questions. Ms. Schindel, you've got 2 minutes. You've signed up favorable and you're part of the sponsor panel. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Melissa Schindel, and I'm here on behalf of principals across the state of Maryland to urge favorable passage of Senate Bill 598. First and foremost, I'm the proud principal of Glenwood Middle School in Howard County, Maryland, and I'm also the Maryland representative to the National Association of Secondary School Principals. I've been an administrator in both Prince George's County Public Schools and the Howard County Public School System, and I have served 15 years as a middle school principal. As a school principal, I have firsthand experience with the day-to-day operations of a school. A principal's perspective is global, and we have a keen understanding of the complex inner workings of a school community, which balances the whole needs of children with the implementation of educational decisions and policies. We make hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions each day, and we understand the opportunities and challenges associated with implementing new initiatives, mandated policies, and exciting opportunities at the school level. Our experiences and perspectives consider all voices, not just those of school leaders, but also those of teachers, students, parents, support staff, and community stakeholders. Principals are charged with implementing the policies, programs, and initiatives of the State Board of Education, in addition to those of federal, state, and local boards and legislators. We ensure compliance. Accountability falls on our shoulders. We ensure our teachers and students are prepared, and we do everything we can to ensure the highest levels of success and achievement for our children. Having a principal on the State Board of Education brings our breadth and depth of experience into critical decisions that impact our schools, teachers, administrators, communities, and most of all, our students. The voice and perspective of a principal on the state board can only help strengthen the multitude of programs and initiatives in our schools and in our state that will ultimately make public education in Maryland world-class. If we are truly committed to providing the very best for our children, then it is crucial that a principal have a position on the Maryland State Board of Education, and I urge favorable passage of Senate Bill 598. Thank you so much for your consideration and support.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Senator Kramer or his panel? Any of the witnesses? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Senator Kramer. We'll next go to a second panel of favorable amendment witnesses. We've got Deborah Miller. I see Ms. Miller back here, Clarence Crawford, and Zachary Hands, both from the State Board of Education, and they've both signed up favorable with amendments. So those are the three final witnesses on this bill. I see Dr. Crawford, Mr. Zachary Hands, and then Deborah Miller. You're not testifying? Okay, so we've got our two. And you've both signed up favorable with amendments, so
Correct.
And you're gonna, I think just you're from State Board. We won't put you on the clock, so why don't you,
Okay.
Dr.
Very good.
Crawford, you start.
Good, very good. Good morning, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. As you know, I'm president of the Maryland State Board of Education. I'm here representing the State Board, and we are in support of Senate Bill 598. But just like to state that we know the importance of the local principals. We're not going to achieve education transformation without them. So they play an incredibly critical role. From the State Board's perspective, we welcome the voice of having administrator with us on the State Board. We support the amendments that Senator Kramer mentioned. we met with Senator Kramer the other day, and then I met with representatives of the Secondary Principals Association. So again, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. We are here in support of 598. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll just second President Crawford and stand for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from our State Department of Education panel here? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 598. And Senator Kramer, why don't you come back up on Senate Bill 1058? We have a number of witnesses signed up, both virtual and favorable, but let me just call up some in-person panelists. I see Meredith Wazel here. Why don't you come up? Abigail Snyder, Debbie Miller, or if you want to come back up, or not back up, let's see. Okay, is Kobe Little in the crowd? I don't see Kobe is, yeah.
Reverend?
Okay, Kobe, why don't
Do
you
you want to
come
come
up?
up now, or do you want to?
You can come up. We got, this is sort of the extent of the favorables in person, then we've got some virtual witnesses, so.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Kobe, you're gonna stand down on
The-
not testify on this
The
one?
Reverend signed up favorable with an
He-
amendment,
He
so
did,
he,
so we'll keep you separate. Okay, we'll take you after all the other, the virtual favorables. So Senator Kramer, it's all yours. We're on Senate Bill 1058. We'll go to the in-person favorables, then we'll go to the virtual favorables, then we'll take up Kobe Little, and then we have some unfavorable testimony as well. So Senator Kramer?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning again, colleagues. Ben Kramer to introduce Senate Bill 1058. Colleagues, in a world plagued by division and animosity, the importance of education as a tool to combat hate cannot be overstated. Hate manifests in various forms, from racial discrimination and religious intolerance to xenophobia and homophobia. However, through education, we have the power to challenge and ultimately eradicate these prejudices. At its core, education is about more than just acquiring knowledge. It is about developing empathy and understanding for others. Through exposure to diverse perspectives, cultures, and experiences, individuals can gain a deeper appreciation for the richness of human diversity. By learning about the struggles and the triumphs of people from different backgrounds, we develop empathy and compassion, transcending the barriers of race, religion, and ethnicity. Furthermore, education provides a platform for dialogue and exchange, allowing individuals to engage in meaningful conversations about difficult topics such as racism, sexism, and prejudice. By encouraging open and honest discussions, education creates a safe space for our children to challenge their own biases and confront uncomfortable truths. In doing so, it fosters a culture of introspection and self-reflection, laying the groundwork for personal growth and transformation. Stereotypes and prejudices are often rooted in ignorance and misinformation, much of which is coming from social media. That is where so much information is being pushed down to our children. Education has the power to challenge these harmful narratives and promote a more nuanced understanding of the world by providing accurate information, emphasis on accurate information, and dispelling myths. Education is what is the foundation to help fight hate and bigotry. Education equips individuals with critical thinking skills, enabling them to question assumptions and evaluate information critically. By teaching our children to discern fact from fiction, education empowers them to resist the influence of propaganda and extremist ideologies. In this way, education serves as a bulwark against the spread of hate and intolerance, arming our students with the knowledge and tools they need to counter divisive rhetoric and misinformation. Teaching students about the history of discrimination and oppression, education empowers them to become agents of change, whether through advocacy, activism, or community service. Educated children become adults who are better equipped to challenge systemic injustices and work toward a more equitable society. Colleagues, in conclusion, education is a powerful tool for combating hate and fostering tolerance and understanding of those who are different from us. By promoting empathy, challenging stereotypes, and promoting social inclusion, education lays the groundwork for a more harmonious and inclusive society. Colleagues, the bill before you helps accomplish just that. And I would proffer to you that by virtue of what this bill represents and what it will mean when implemented, we will be demonstrating that we are responding to the unprecedented levels of hate that we are seeing that continues to churn and grow. Education is our first tool in the toolbox to fight the hate, to fight the prejudice, to fight the biases that we are witnessing on a daily basis now. Colleagues, I will share that I understand this is a very unique bill in that we do not typically pass legislation in this arena. It is typically left to our State Board of Education to determine curriculum. And baked into the bill preamble is the following language, because we all need to recognize we do not typically walk down this path. It is a policy of the General Assembly to avoid legislating the instruction of the public school system, but the unprecedented expressions of hate, bigotry, and prejudice have reached a critical and alarming mass, requiring that the General Assembly take unprecedented policy action to best achieve outcomes for the people of the state. We're recognizing this will be unique and landmark action by our General Assembly, but now is the time for that action. So the bill before you would require the State Board adopt curriculum standards and curriculum resources for instructional content on comprehensive anti-hate education, utilizing historical contexts that have led to contemporary racism and prejudice. And it also incorporates education about the Holocaust. It includes that the department shall revise and enhance the high school history framework to include instruction on the history and contributions of historically disadvantaged racial and ethnic groups. And there are some that are specifically listed within the bill. And then it allows the board to add any historically disadvantaged racial and ethnic groups that it also deems appropriate to be teaching in our school system. Finally, the bill requires some very prescriptive education about the Holocaust. The reason for that prescriptive language is that in 2019, 5 years ago, the superintendent of public schools sent a letter to this body and said, here are all of the things that we are going to implement with regard to Holocaust education in our school system. Sadly, much of it never was implemented. So we are simply copying and pasting the commitment that was made by the then superintendent in 2019, incorporating that into the bill because we know they were prepared and are capable of doing what they committed to do. And then, colleagues, the bill also makes it clear that what is in here is the floor, not the ceiling. And so this is what we want to see at a bare minimum in taking up the subject matter of hate and discrimination in our public schools. I am very pleased to see that the Maryland State Education Association is supporting this important legislation. Our teachers, the folks who are going to be in the trenches doing the work, they support this bill. They know how important this is for their students. They offered one technical amendment, which I asked to have drafted. Again, I don't know whether you've received it yet, but it was nothing more than a technical amendment, and I'm in full support of that. I have to say, I'm a little disappointed, but not surprised that our friends from the state board are not supportive, and I get it. They don't want to see the legislature stepping into what they believe is exclusively their world. And as I mentioned, historically, we have respected that. But we are the Maryland General Assembly, and our constituents are calling for and demanding that we take action. That's why we were sent here. It is our job in unprecedented circumstances to take unprecedented action and ensure that we are looking out for the best interests of our families, our parents, and our students in the state of Maryland. With that, and I do appreciate real fast, the board in their letter indicated they are looking to convene a standards and framework review committee to address the concerns raised in this bill. Colleagues, I would proffer to you that they should do that even with passage of this bill. That is an initiative they should take up, and they indicate in their letter that this group, that framework review committee, would start to look at addressing some of these issues. And my hope is that they will then, with the basics in our bill, put together a meaningful, constructive curriculum to address what it is we in the legislature say is so important. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. I appreciate your time.
Okay, Senator Kramer, thank you for your testimony. Why don't we'll now go to your panel. Who wants to lead off and tell us who you are? And again, each of you are going to be under the 2-minute clock, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Meredith Weisel, I'm the regional director for the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. We are a leading anti-hate organization that has been working to fight hate and extremism since 1913. I'm going to specifically, so you have my written testimony, so I just want to highlight a few quick things specifically to the rising anti-Semitism that we have been seeing as ADL puts out an audit of anti-Semitic incidents each year. In 2022, Maryland was the 10th highest in the country of anti-Semitic incidents. And if you look at my written testimony, some of the things that we have been seeing in our K through 12 schools, incidents of harassment and vandalism have been some of the highest that we have seen. Things like statements that were made to a Jewish student saying, "You Jew, why don't you kill yourself?" Or when shouted in the middle of a math class, "If anyone celebrates Yom Kippur today, you can die." Vandalism incidents have had statements saying, "Kill all Jews." 6M meaning 6 million, oven, Hitler was right, Jews not welcome. We are also seeing incidents like this against students of color, LGBTQ plus community. It is a consistent thing that we are seeing. To sort of quote Senator Kramer, education is key here. Education is our key to combating hate. If students do not learn the history of something like the Holocaust, other forms of genocide, racism throughout our history, incidents where we have seen things manifesting today, they do not have a good grasp of the hatred and bigotry that we are seeing permeating throughout our schools. For all of these reasons, we have been here many years, year after year, testifying in support of mandatory Holocaust education. We strongly believe the expansiveness of this bill is ripe right now, given the rise of hate and extremism throughout the communities. So for these reasons, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Perfect time.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Abby Snyder, Director of Government Relations for the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and its agencies, here today in support of SB 1058. It is truly impossible at this point to turn a blind eye to the increased rhetoric of hate that is plaguing our school systems across the state. Whether it's a swastika next to the words "kill the Jews" in the bathroom at Pikesville Middle School, threats to Black students at Middleton Middle School in Frederick, or the numerous increase in anti-Semitic incidences that I know my colleague will talk about in Montgomery County Public Schools, this is an epidemic and we must do something to address it. SB 1058 takes a bold step to help educate our young people by requiring comprehensive anti-hate curriculum in our public schools and the non-public schools that receive state funding. Teaching our students about contemporary racism, prejudice, and the Holocaust will help them to better understand why their words matter and can be extremely harmful. To reinforce proper understanding of these topics, high school curricula will be required to include lessons about the contributions of a plethora of historically disadvantaged groups, ensuring better understanding of those who may not look like us or come from the same backgrounds. Maryland is currently on the path of updating the middle school history curriculum. In a memo published by the interim state superintendent of schools exactly a month ago today, which is linked in my written testimony if you'd like to check it out. There is a section with new 6th and 7th grade social studies curricula outlining the inclusion of lessons on anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. But we believe that with the increasing incidences of anti-Semitism in classrooms across our young populations, it's important that we expand these efforts even further as stated in the bill. And for these reasons, we urge a favorable report. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman Feldman and members of the committee. I'm Deborah Miller, the Maryland Director of Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington, and I'm here today also in support of Senate Bill 1058. At the JCRC, we have a robust education division to combat anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred and to teach the lessons of the Holocaust, but it is not enough. We need the Educate to Stop the Hate Act. We are living in a time of heightened hatred. The spike in racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Asian hate, to name just a few targeted groups, is unprecedented. And for the Jewish community, in the last few months, we have witnessed an alarming 361% increase in anti-Semitic incidents compared to the same period about a year ago. This legislation, as you've heard my colleagues and Senator Kramer say, is a necessary tool to help us educate students to reduce the vitriol and hatred. We need to develop curriculum standards from elementary to high school to understand history, including bigotry and prejudice, so that horrific incidents in the past, like the Holocaust, will not be repeated. We need young people to understand that words do matter, to take stock of the harm hatred can cause. At the JCRC, it seems like a week doesn't go by without a phone call about bullying on a playground, a swastika found on a school desk, or vandalism at a synagogue. It's unacceptable and must be addressed. The Educate to Stop the Hate Act is not a panacea, but it certainly is a critical step to stem the tide and fight back against the harmful impact of hatred, which undermines the very fabric of our society. HB 1058 is an opportunity to disrupt all forms of hatred. It's an opportunity we can't afford to miss. For these reasons, we also ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 1058. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have one virtual favorable witness. I'd like to pull up here. And then we, okay. Okay, Nicole, Cashton, are you there? Okay, there you are. Okay,
Hello, I'm actually here for the next bill. I was unintentionally at it. However, I will say that as a college.
Wait a second. Okay, you're not signed up on Senate Bill 105?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I think there's
Okay,
two
well, why don't
Nicoles.
okay, you don't need to weigh in then on this one. We're good. Yeah, we'll put you in the waiting room for the next bill. Okay, the other two virtual witnesses who did sign up for this bill are not in the queue. So let's see. So thank you for the panel, Senator Kramer, and to the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we will now go to Kobe Little, who had signed up. Oh, okay, actually, I apologize. Questions for Senator Kramer, come back up here. Questions for this panel or Senator Kramer, Senator Lewis Young, I apologize.
Senator Kramer, thank you for this bill. About a year ago, you had a bill that was somewhat similar. And I remember that you played video for us. There was interviewing on the street, and a vast majority of people interviewed had never heard of the Holocaust. Do you have, I mean, that was qualitative. It was kind of like a focus group. Do you have any quantitative information about the percentage of young people that are not aware of the Holocaust and the relevant history?
Yes, thank you for that. That's an excellent question. And colleagues, for those of you who were here at the bill hearing last year, I did present, and it was a fascinating video that ended up garnering national attention. And it was a woman who went to the premier universities in Pennsylvania, Penn State, University of Pennsylvania, among others, and randomly started interviewing students on campus.
Right.
And her questions were, what do you know about the Holocaust? What are your, thoughts on that? Student after student that she interviewed at the premier universities in Pennsylvania knew nothing about the Holocaust. They didn't know when it occurred. They didn't know the numbers of human beings, children, women, and men who were slaughtered for no other reason than their religious beliefs. And it was shocking. And that's why it garnered so much attention. It really started to come up all over the country, causing the concerns that we're sharing with you. And yes, every study that is being done, and there's been a number of them over the last couple of years, so thank you for bringing that up, show a dramatic lack of any knowledge amongst our 18 to 30-year-olds with regard to the Holocaust. They're not familiar with the death camps. They know nothing about who it was that perpetrated this mass slaughter of humanity, and it was shocking. And very sadly, when we forget our past and we don't learn about it, all of you know we are doomed to repeat it. And quite frankly, the Holocaust is roughly 70 years in the rearview mirror. When for the past several decades, people were, oh, everyone will always remember this atrocity. And yet we are now seeing clearly it is being forgotten. And I will also share with all of you, Jew hate is always the tip of the spear. when we see these dramatic increases in Jew hate, we know the broader, more generalized hate for every other ethnic group, ethnic minority, other religious minorities, it's going to be right on the heels. This is the canary in the cave. And if we don't address this, we are going to see all the other hate continue to rise. Thank you for your question.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer just real quick?
Okay, very briefly, yes.
Very briefly. So, and Senator, we can send you some of the data, the most recent data, but Maryland, as I said, was the 10th highest in 2022 of anti-Semitic incidents. We were the 10th lowest of Holocaust knowledge. So from the bottom 10, in the bottom 10. So you can see a correlation there, and we do have more recent data we can send you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a virtual member appearing virtually from Kansas City or somewhere. Vice Chair Kagan had a question. I did one factual correction, Senator Kramer. It was actually the University of Pennsylvania, your video. I remember it well, not Penn State. And so I just, as a Penn State grad, I just wanted to correct the record on that one. So with that, Vice Chair Kagan, you've got a question.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Kramer, thank you for your passion and your leadership. Thanks to all of the advocates for being there. As a proud Jew, I worry and I lose sleep over the hate and bias and terrifying explosion of anti-Semitic, racist, anti-Asian, Islamophobic, all of the hate that we have seen in recent years. My question is twofold. One, Senator Kramer, Abby Snyder talked about middle school curriculum. I wonder, as you know, I don't like curricular mandates. I want kids to be taught. They need to be educated. I don't love the idea of the state telling them what they have to teach. So if you or Ms. Snyder can talk about that. And then second, on your list on page 3, on lines, starts on line 6 and goes through line 16. An obvious omission to me that is also persecuted is the LGBTQ community and trans folks. I don't know whether that's something that if this bill were to move, that you would see any wisdom in including that, but history of the Stonewall riots and of, I think people need to be educated that we're not all born the same way and we don't all love, the same way. And so those are my 2 questions, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And not everybody has to answer it, but
No, that's fine.
No,
okay,
totally.
yeah.
I'm not sure I fully understood the first question. You were talking about the fact that there is some Holocaust education being implemented.
I can speak.
But
Abby Snyder
that's
talked about
fine.
it in middle school.
Yeah,
Ms. Snyder,
so-
why don't you answer?
So briefly, as Senator Kramer mentioned, this was something that in 2019 was discussed and planned to be implemented with the former superintendent. It took a really long time to get that going. And as you'll see in my written testimony linked, there was a very recent update to what will be taught. And it mentions anti-Semitism in the Holocaust. That's me trying to give credit where credit is due, but I will say it's very briefly mentioned. So that means they will touch on it in their curriculum, but we don't know to what extent. It's certainly not to the extent that is being mentioned in this bill. And again, that's why we kind of welcome including much more. So.
Right. So I understand that Dr. Wright is in the room, so maybe she'll be speaking to that since we do have a new person in charge at MSDE. Senator Kramer, what did you think of the other idea?
So my thought is simply this. We have specific historically disadvantaged racial and ethnic groups listed. At the conclusion, it specifies other historically. We're not trying to capture every group that might be out there. That could be an endless list. What you see listed here is a consequence of repeated meetings between House leadership and Senate leadership and trying to establish the framework of what we were seeking to accomplish in the bill. And it was not intended to be all inclusive. That's why we do have that concluding segment of the bill to give the opportunity to the board to interact with the public and determine where else they may want to go.
Sure. Senator, just
Thank you.
closing, thank you for that. The wording is other historically disadvantaged racial and ethnic groups. I saw that. The LGBTQ community, the trans community is neither racial nor ethnic. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Senator Gallion next, and just heads up that some of the virtual witnesses who we didn't see in the queue are now going to be on the queue. We'll take you up next when we're done with this panel. So Senator Gallion, why don't you weigh in with your question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I had a question for Ms. Weissel. So you mentioned some of the horrific and disturbing actions that took place in some of our schools. You mentioned a few specific instances. My question is, were there appropriate disciplinary actions taken on the people that perpetrated that? And there also seems there should be accountability for the parents of these children, especially they're younger. So could you let me know if was there appropriate disciplinary action taken in those instances? Because even we educate people, still I think we need to follow up with proper discipline when this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak to every specific instance. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. It's very school specific or school district specific. So there are policies that each school district has related to hate and bias incidents. It is a cumbersome process. I will say that, for example, one of my kids is in Montgomery County Public Schools, and they over the past few years have been redoing their hate and bias reporting incidents and how students report it, whether or not parents are even notified. So in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. That's probably an entirely separate bill to discuss what the disciplinary procedures should be. Also, I will say from EDL's position, most of the time we do believe that education is key. And sometimes a lot of this does come from ignorance. A lot of the swastikas. So as Abby mentioned, we do see a lot of swastikas on a regular basis. Half of the time, or probably more than half the time, the students don't even know what it means. They say, for example, a middle schooler last year said, I saw it on TikTok and I thought it was funny. So to Senator Kramer's comment about social media. So where is that gap there and where can we educate? Certainly there's the vandalism and the student there could be some disciplinary action, but we also need to educate them what is the swastika? And so it really varies from school to school. So again, some yes, some no. Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions for this panel? Senator Kramer? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We're gonna go now to the virtual straight favorable witnesses. I see Marjorie Smelkinson. Ms. Smelkinson, again, you're gonna be on the 2-minute clock and you've signed up straight favorable, okay? So why don't you proceed?
Okay, I'm Dr. Marjorie Smelkinson. I'm the leader of the Maryland Jewish Alliance. It's a grassroots group fighting anti-Semitism in our state. I recently wrote an op-ed for the Baltimore Sun in support of this bill, describing why our schools need a Holocaust education requirement. The distressing reality is that America's youth are alarmingly ignorant about the Holocaust. A recent poll showed that 1 in 5 think it's a myth, half cannot name a single concentration camp, and 2/3 do not know that 6 million Jews were murdered. This ignorance is appalling and dangerous. Data has shown that Holocaust education can promote positive attitudes towards Jews. Unfortunately, Maryland is in the minority of states not requiring Holocaust education, and may be why it also has one of the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents. Sadly, Maryland's schools are serving as a breeding ground for anti-Semitism. In MCPS, Hitler salutes, swastikas, derogatory comments are all commonplace. In fact, last year, 61% of all hate bias incidents were anti-Jewish, despite Jews making up only 10% of the population. I hear similar stories out of Baltimore, Howard, Frederick, and elsewhere. Today's youth may not be able to name a concentration camp, but they certainly know how to make repulsive jokes about them. So, frankly, I am not a fan of answering the problem of modern anti-Semitism with Holocaust education. It suggests that, the anti-Semitism of World War II is somehow distinct from that of today, but it is the same, and this must be emphasized in a curriculum. It shares the same tropes, the same marginalization, the same deep-seated roots, and it must be addressed with the same urgency. So while recognizing the limitations, if Holocaust education can help mitigate the alarming very alarming rise of anti-Semitism in Maryland, mandating it is the least the state can do to support its Jewish constituents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Smelkinson? Okay, seeing none, we'll next move to Nicole Cashton. Ms. Cashton, again, you're on the 2-minute clock and you've signed up favorable. So why don't you proceed?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Nicole Cashton, and I am the founder of Montgomery County Jewish Parents Coalition, also a grassroots coalition. I work very closely with Marjorie and the Maryland Jewish Alliance. I am also a Jewish parent with 2 young kids in Montgomery County Public Schools, and it is absolutely imperative that students across the state of Maryland receive significantly stronger Holocaust education than they've received currently. As it stands now, Holocaust education, which is not even required statewide in Maryland, is often lacking in both quality and quantity when it is taught. Students are exposed to Holocaust education too late in their academic careers, and the emphasis is often just on the Holocaust itself, but not the time period leading up to its start. This results in students believing that the Holocaust happened to the Jewish people in a vacuum and was not the result of thousands of years of anti-Semitism, including ancient tropes that are frequent today. In addition, students are sometimes under the impression that the Holocaust is the only calamity to ever befall the Jewish people, and also do not believe that anti-Semitism is still a problem. In fact, according to a recent Harvard-Harris poll, 2/3 of Americans ages 18 to 24 believe that Jews are oppressors. In reality, we know that Jews are frequent victims of hate crimes, especially since October 7th, 2023. Much more needs to be done to fight anti-Semitism in all areas of society. Given the explosion of anti-Semitism and dearth of Holocaust education in Maryland, especially in schools and amongst young people, this legislation cannot wait. Please pass SB 1058. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions specifically for Ms. Cashton? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We have one final virtual witness, Nelda Fink. Ms. Fink in the queue still? Okay, Ms. Fink, we're gonna try to pull you up. Okay, Ms. Fink, are you there? You were there a short while ago. Okay. Okay, going once, twice, 3 times. I think we're gonna need to move on. I'm gonna bring Kobe Little up here. You were signed up favorable with amendments, Kobe, so why don't you come up to the witness table, and you two will be subject to the 2-minute clock, okay?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Madam Clerk, before you start the clock, this is McShauna Kess. She's the Executive Director of the Maryland NAACP. And I've asked her to sit with me in case there are questions to help me hear what the.
No problem. Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am the Reverend Kobe Little, President of the Maryland NAACP. It's good to see my senator, Senator Mary Washington, my friend of many decades, and other distinguished members of this panel. I want to make 3 points, and if the time runs out, I hope that one of you will ask me what the other point is. First of all, I want to say that the NAACP wholeheartedly supports this legislation, as eloquently supported by or offered by Senator Ben Cramer, who is also a good friend. We want to give context for the extraordinary reason why you should pass this legislation. This is an opportunity not only for leadership in Maryland, but also for leadership nationally. My colleagues from the Jewish Council and the ADL have already talked about the rise in hate. I'd like to make the connection between the rise in hate, the lack of education, and the toll that takes on democracy. It is important for us to have curricula that strengthen our democracy and that encourage our young people and our citizens to understand the value of pluralism and the value of living together, the value of mutuality. In a state where our state seal still has a crown and still flies the banner that was used by the Confederacy during the Civil War, it is important for us to counterbalance that reinforcement, that education, with curriculum that is specifically designed to teach about hate and to teach about the history that brings us to this place where there's so much hate. My final point is we do have some amendments. And in light of the nearly 2 million African Americans who live in Maryland, we think, Senator Kramer, that it would be important wherever the word anti-Semitism appears, that the words white supremacy appear, and wherever the word Holocaust appears, that the words transatlantic slavery would also appear. Those are our only amendments. We fully support the rationale behind this bill. Senator Kramer and I just had the opportunity to get together late yesterday evening, so I wasn't able to share these amendments with him without reading the bill first. But we do hope that you will seize this opportunity to take action, even though it is not consistent with the general policy of the Maryland General Assembly. Thank you, Senator Feldman and members of the committee.
Okay, any questions for Reverend Little? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We've got the two witnesses referenced earlier from the State Department of Education. We do have Dr. Carrie Wright, our interim superintendent, signed up. I'm not sure if she's here, but we also have Clarence Crawford from State Board of Education as well. So if you would both come up.